Welcome to Stay Sparked. On this show, we explore how to stay inspired in the modern world through the most profound lessons from Burning Man, relationships, entrepreneurship, psychedelics, spirituality, travel, and more.
On today's episode, we are joined by a dear friend, Craig Saloner, to talk about money once again.
We get to pick his brain about all kinds of things regarding wealth management, building wealth, mindset, and so much more.
And we discuss where in our lives do we need to be in order to start investing, saving, and perhaps even earning off of assets. The answer is we can start right now. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Stay Sparked. We are longtime friends that have been having inspiring conversations at gatherings for over a decade, and we have decided to start recording them and sharing with you so that way we can spread the sparks of inspiration. If you have been enjoying these episodes, please let us know by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we love hearing your reviews. I'm Betsy.
I'm HALCYON.
And I'm JANUS.
And on today's episode, we have our very first guest, Craig Saloner.
Hi, everybody.
Yay!
Yay!
Hey,
It's number one.
Woo! So we love starting every episode with gratitude. So love to start with you, Janus. What are you grateful for today?
I am grateful today for actually part of what Craig is here for is realizing that my community, our community, is loaded with people who are really smart about a lot of things, really skilled and adept at a lot of things. I'm kind of redoing my business right now, so I'm needing to do like the website needs to be redone. I need new photos. I need like new labeling. Just across the board, I have a lot of like stuff I need to do and redo. And I am able to just go into my phone book or my phone and just dial in my contacts, be like, hey, so-and-so, can you take these pictures? Like, so-and-so. And also my partner and I were looking for a new house. And I have friends, dear close friends who are realtors or are in the realtor business. And so I haven't had to go online and look for, help from or assistance from strangers in a lot of things in my life. It's like, I'm feeling gratitude just to be able to call my community. And I've got a lot of wonderful friends who are really smart about a lot of things, and it's happy to be connected to these people. So I'm feeling gratitude for that for sure.
Nice.
Amazing.
Oh, well, my gratitude this week is for all of my previous and past romantic partners. I am currently deeply in love in a beautiful relationship, and I am so grateful for the patience and lessons and just the profound impact of the people who have dedicated huge amounts of their lives to me in our past relationships. And I'm just feeling a lot of gratitude and appreciation for those beautiful people. Thank you all.
I'll share my gratitude next. I love that. I am grateful for this beautiful home that I am getting to house sit this last couple of weeks. It's a friend of mine who is traveling and I'm taking care of his plants. And he happens to be a crystal collector of large crystals. He has labradorite countertops, giant amethysts in pretty much every room. Just like crystals on the like little knobs in the kitchen, and just like crystals are everywhere. And I'm such a crystal lover, and so I'm kind of in crystal heaven right now. So really, really grateful for this beautiful home that it feels like a temple to get to be in right now.
Oh my God. How perfect is that for you? Oh my gosh. That's great.
No, it's like one crystal attracting another, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How about you, Craig? What are you grateful for today?
Well, firstly, I'm super grateful to be invited on this. I'm grateful that the three of you are taking the helm and choosing to have a conversation, and so grateful that you chose to invite me as your first guest. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm also so grateful for all my teachers, whether, starting from my parents and my dad, and we'll get into some of my story a little bit, but really all the experiences, like HALCYON said, right? Just this idea of all the people that came into our lives that shared their time, their space, their experience. And even if those experiences weren't wonderful, lessons that we were able to garner, the wisdom we were able to attain from it, and just all, the culmination of that through a lifetime leads to this like magical, beautiful adventure that we get to live. And I'm just thrilled and grateful, and I feel blessed, and I'm just so happy to be here. So thank you all.
So good. I feel that. Well, we're so grateful to have you here because we have been in the last couple of episodes talking about money mindset, money attitude, some of our own personal journeys on finance and prosperity and also scarcity. And we were actually really tuning into expanding this conversation into financial literacy, financial education, just bringing it down into some of the logistical things. And coming back to Janus's gratitude, we're realizing that we have someone in our direct community, our soul family, you, Craig, C Love. For those of you that don't know, love to give a more formal introduction to this amazing, beautiful soul. So Craig Saloner, also known as C Love, is a financial coach that works with heart-centered clients, me being one of them. I'm so grateful to get to be taking your course right now. He helps to improve the relationships with money, addressing both mechanics and psychology of building wealth. He teaches a natural and holistic approach to investing, saving, and growing riches, and I'll add on, in a fun and applicable way. Craig is also an active investor and businessman who has a robust and diversified portfolio. He's passionate about community, obviously, lives in an eco village here in Southern California that he co-founded called Emerald Village, and has a beautiful wife and 3 amazing children. So we're so grateful to have you here and to spark this conversation and really dive in, explore some of these wonderful concepts with our extended community.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'd love to kind of like see if either of you guys, HALCYON or Janus, want to start us off with a question for C Love.
I mean, my first question is, as you see the 3 of us aging hippies talking about money, and what are the things that you go, oh my gosh, I sure hope they know about XYZ?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got, I think my first reaction is, thank God we're having the conversation now, right? Like, and not in 20 years from now. I mean, we know that the baby boomers now, their number one fear is not dying; it's literally outliving their money, right? And we have an education system that just still to this day does not teach our children about personal finances. I mean, like, right, how many personal finances did you take in school?
0.
I mean, did anybody?
0.
And it's mind blowing, right? Because money is such an all-encompassing, pervasive force in the world. I like to say that money is mycelium, right? Like it's the mycelium. It like penetrates everything. It's in everything. It's in everywhere. And it informs so many of our decisions. It affects so much of our life. If we have it, we can do. It opens us up to opportunities. If we don't have it, it leads to, it creates so much pain and trauma and suffering and fighting, right? And like, there's just the amount of. So when I hear that aging hippies are talking about it, I'm like, all right, right on. It's about time. I'm stoked because really money, it's one of my core fundamental teaching and BETSY thing is like my whole teaching is the steps you take to grow your money are the same steps you take to grow a garden. Okay, so I use that metaphor a lot. And just like it takes time to grow a fruit tree, right? You got to plant the seed and you got to water it and you got to nurture it. And it takes time for that tree to root and then grow and then start producing fruit. But once it produces fruit season after season. Well, so too with investing, right? Investing takes time. It takes, like, money takes time. It takes time to grow wealth. So people say, like, when's the best time I should have started investing? Well, you should have started investing 20 years from now. When's the second best time? Is like today. So because we got it, like, there is a process, there is a natural flow to the way money works and to the way money grows. And the most important thing is to start getting into the game and to understand how the systems and the mechanics work. And a lot of that requires just us getting out of our own way and going, okay, getting at peace with money and healing some of that old trauma and that old, those old blockages.
Absolutely. And, you know, I really want to highlight this concept that you have been using that has really helped me around using the metaphor of building a garden. Because I know personally for me, learning about money was always really kind of intimidating and scary because the only class that actually was available when I was in high school was like, just the language was just so confusing to me. I didn't understand it. It was very difficult. I took the class and I dropped out pretty much immediately because it just was too overwhelming for me. And so I actually shied away from learning about money because of the language barrier, even though it's all in English, but it just seemed like jargon to me. And so, what I really value about the way that you teach about money is speaking in a way that is very applicable, very understandable. The metaphor of the garden is something that I think we all can really understand, right? Like having healthy soil is an important part of having a healthy garden, right? And it's like if we don't have a healthy foundation for our money to grow, then it's not going to bear fruit, right? And so and the course that I've been taking with Craig, it's just been really a game changer for me to start to see my finances in a whole new level. So I'd love it if you could actually share a little bit more about that analogy.
Yeah. So, you know, you know, I must be honest. I've lived on an eco village for 12 years, and I'm not a gardener. I handle the finances of the village, and you know, but you don't have to, like you said, you don't need to be a gardener or someone who has a green thumb in order to understand the metaphor, right? We teach in metaphors all the time. We teach our kids in stories and in metaphors, and it helps to understand it, right? And so certainly, like if I was to go and if I had a garden and I wanted to grow, you know, I wanted to like improve it, the first thing I would do is I would actually take a look at the current state of the garden, like what's growing and what's dying, and are the, you know, are there weeds, are there pests, is there irrigation set? So too with money, the very first thing we want to do is we want to look at our current finances. And so many people do not have a, you know, we have a sense, we have a bank account, we got money coming in, we got to, you know, we know if we're broke or we got some debt, but like to truly understand what do we own, what do we owe, and give you an idea of your net worth, and what do we earn and what do we spend. And sort of that's the very first step in the financial process. You're talking about how do we start to ground some of this thing, take it out in the ethereal. Well, the first thing is we've got to look at our money. We've got to look at our current state of our finances. Janus, you want to start a business, like that thing's going to take some cash flow. That thing's going to, you know, you got to pay your photographers, you got to pay your designers. We got to know where we're at. We got to know where we're starting, so we have a mechanism for how we can track it. So that's the first step, is to, you know, to get clarity on your finances, right? Is to observe. And a lot of what I teach, you know, again, we've got so much shame and guilt and pain and, you know, anguish around money. So a lot of times when we look at our current finances, we can get overwhelmed, or we can get into like so much judgment. And so part of what we do is really how can we stay in observation, right? How can you just like look at where you're at? Okay, this is what my garden looks like, man. I'm not super proud of it. But this is where I'm at, right? And if I know where I'm at, then I can start to bridge to where I'm going. And so much of, again, it's this constant bridging of the mechanics of money, which is like how to actually set up the infrastructure, the systems, the processes to grow and build wealth, versus the psychology of money, which is really like our thoughts and our beliefs and our experiences around money. And so we do a lot of that integration work. And that was really just the first step.
So I love this idea of healing the blockages and dealing with the attitudes. And I'm curious, you know, how much of the beliefs and attitudes are necessary to get healthy, or can someone just say, tell me what to do, tell me where to put my money, tell me what to do, or do I really have to do the work and understand the...
Yeah, it's a great question, right? It's a great question. I had a great teacher who said that we have like a financial thermostat, okay? And so the question is really, what type of garden do you want to grow, and how big do you want to grow, and how many people do you want to feed with it? right? Like, and this is, so again, I can teach you all the mechanics, and we can set your irrigation lines, and we can create your money management system, and you can build a garden that can feed you, and maybe it's enough, and you can take care of your bills and everything else. But if you want to get to a next level of wealth, if you say, hey, listen, I really want to help lots of people, or I really want to have enough to build my community, well, then you've got to do the work to make yourself feel deserving and worthy of more abundance. We know this. We're in the energy space, right? I mean, I don't need to share with you how important it is. And so if we've got belief systems such as, a common belief is that rich people are greedy. Now, if I'm holding that belief, or money is the root of all evil, well, if I'm holding that belief, there's no amount of investment advice that I can give you will, eventually, if I hold the belief that money is the root of all evil, then if money starts coming, what lands up happening is we start self-sabotaging, or we start giving it away, or we start making silly decisions, because I subconsciously do not want to be evil. So I push away wealth, and I remain with my little garden, and I remain with my little patch. And that's cool. If that's where you want to be, God bless it. But I believe that with more money, we can do more good. That is like a mantra that I have and I teach. And therefore, we have to do the inner work. We have to feel like, oh, I'm deserving, I'm worthy, more money, I can do more good. Please, Lord, give me more so that I can share more and give more. I hope that answers.
Yes, absolutely. It's going right back to that metaphor of the soil, right? If you don't have healthy soil, then you can't grow a thriving garden. And it's like, what's underneath the surface, right? You can't quite see underneath the surface of the topsoil if there's like old roots in there that are taking over, or if there's like it's too dry, or there isn't enough bacteria in there to really produce more, then it's not going to grow, right? And you're talking about that same thing. I love that you said the money is the root of all evil, right? Is like, what are their core roots in that belief system work to be able to clean that up?
Yeah, and these rocks, I call them the rocks, right? These rocks that live underneath the ground, so they're buried. They were formed by our parents, by what we heard, what we saw, what we experienced. And these things, they live within us, and they stop us from rooting and growing taller. Right. And so until we can uproot some of those non-supportive limiting beliefs, those traumas, those past experiences that are non-supportive anymore, well, when we can do that work and we're able to release some of that, the growth that I see in my clients, when we're able to like unlock some of the stuck energy, and just like, the expansiveness, and all of a sudden money starts flowing and things start happening in abundance, and all, it's really a miraculous process.
Nice. And that's something that we've touched on in the last couple of episodes we've done. We've really dove into like mindsets and where they come from, and how to uproot those, and to kind of heal that process. So assuming that, let's say somebody has done that work, or is continuing to do that work, and now they hear about somebody like you, Craig, and it's like, okay, a financial advisor, let's go to a financial consultant, financial empowerment coach, what have you. The mindset might then be, okay, well, I don't really feel like I have enough to invest, or I have enough to hire or take on somebody like yourself. So what would you say to somebody who might have the idea that they don't have enough money to invest, or they don't have enough money to take you on, they don't want to waste your time? So what would you say to somebody who came to you with that?
I'd say
sort of perspective?
It's not everybody has enough to start investing. Like everybody should be investing on a regular basis all the time. And I've dealt with clients have negative net worths who are massively in debt. And what we do is we create the systems. It's not, and the statement is, it's not the amount that matters, it's the habit. It's really just, it's getting into the idea of like, even if I took $10, $50, $100 a month, and I just put it into an investment account, and I put that I buy one fraction of one share, or I buy one stock. what's happening is that the energetics is changing. What I'm moving from consumer to investor. I'm beginning to put energy in towards that garden, and slowly, and it's a process, right? And also that's part of why we got to look at where our spending is. Where is the leaks in the irrigation system? Where are we spending money all over the place, right? There's always places that we can just tighten up a little and start putting, because the key to investing is that investments take time. It's like I shared about the fruit tree. It takes time to grow money. So what we got to do is we got to get into the game. We got to understand how money works. Money is it's called currency because there's a flow to it. And if we do what we always did, we're going to always get what we always got. If we don't start investing, we're never going to invest. So now in your 20, and what I teach is that look, when you're investing, you're not investing for you're investing for your future self. You're investing for yourself 20, 30 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, so that you're not having to be 75 and working, 40, 50, 60 hours a week to pay the bills. And so the habit is more important than the amount, and just understanding how money works, understanding the power of compounding interest, understanding that you could buy a little share called Amazon in 1997 for $5,000 and you'd be worth $7.9 million today. Like that's just how it happens, right? So if you put a little bit in every month, then over time it can grow and expand.
I think that also really speaks to the feedback loop of our mindset too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're putting those habits in, then you're actually investing, then you start to see yourself as somebody who's an investor, right? And that can start to shift the old program that says I'm broke or I don't know anything about money or whatever that negative belief system is. So those little tiny little habits, or if you're a gardener, you say you don't know how to garden, but then you just start to practice a little bit, then you start to see yourself as a gardener or someone with a green thumb, and then all of a sudden you start getting better and better and better because we start believing in ourselves and seeing ourselves as that wealthy person or the person who's able to grow in abundance, whether that's a garden or finances.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this shift from consumer to investor is so important, right? Like, in other words, like you're beginning to understand that the game can be played in a different way. And it is a game. Like, make no mistake, money is a game. There are very specific rules to the game. Financial statements are the scorecard. Like, and most people just don't understand the rules because it was, like I said, it was never taught to them. But when you understand the rules, when you understand the mechanisms, all of a sudden things start happening that you were unexpected. And that is like the sprouting starts happening and wealth starts to build.
Yeah. And I think it's significant when you learn that some of the rules are counterintuitive to kind of the logic that you learned in school. Like, I remember, it took me until 2 years ago at 50 that I invested in my first property into the condo that I'm living in now. And I didn't realize until that process, the whole concept behind real estate investment, and that, you put 20% down and then I gain the benefit of the entire property's worth, as it grows. Now, I'm sure that didn't land. If you don't know that concept, it's probably not going to land the way I described right now. But it was a concept that was totally foreign to me, and it made it so that investing in real estate just didn't make sense to me according to the previous way that I understood the world. And you mentioned compounding interest. I'm wondering, Craig, could you give us just like a intro to compounding interest that is the kind of concept that helps you go, oh wait, that's not the way I understood the world?
Yeah, so compounding interest is the idea that it's the idea that you earn interest on your interest, right? And it works on an exponential curve. So you have $100 and you earn 10% interest. Now you could do two things with that 10%. So you earn $10 of that $100 capital, right? Now you can do two things with that $10 interest that you earn. You could either spend it, in which case your capital would remain $100, and then you would earn the same $10 the next year, or you could reinvest it. So compounding interest requires you to reinvest the earnings that you earned. So in year two, if assuming that you reinvested it, you would then have the $100 initial capital plus the $10 you earned in year one. So you would now have $110 of capital, what I call bees, working bees. These are the bees, the honeybees that are out there pollinating. And the interest now, say you made that same 10%, instead of the $10 you would have earned, you now would have earned $11. You reinvest that again. This year 3, you got $121, and now you're earning $12 interest. And it doesn't seem like a lot until it gets to a tipping point. This is why I'm saying I'd rather have my 40 or 50-year-old hippies talking about it now than in 20 years from now, because we need time. Right? So if you constantly, and that's why teach it to our children, teach it to our teens, teach it to the 20-year-olds, because compounding interest needs the reinvest, it needs a good interest rate, it needs the reinvesting of the earnings, and it needs time. And when you give those 3 things, all of a sudden you grow an orchard of diversified assets that are pushing out big amounts of produce year after year. And that's how we ultimately lead. Now, I know it's not sexy because it's not sexy because it's not quick, and everybody wants quick. Like building wealth is a long game. Now, I'm not saying that you can't, like, I have an investment strategy of sort of 80% stocks and bonds, and 20% I like to throw at little individuals, right? So hopefully you can get a big hit, startups. I want to invest in Janus's company because I think it's going to go large, right? And so when we do that, when we're in the game, we both have the opportunity of building long-term wealth and the opportunity of really picking a stock or a bond or something that you could have really like explosive growth.
Cool.
So if I'm hearing you correctly,
thank you.
I put it all into crypto. Is that what you're trying to say?
Go big.
No, put it all into Janus's company.
We all had it, right? I mean, whoever went on that ride, boy, was it a ride? Am I right? You know, and we all, I mean, again, and I kept teaching, I keep sharing, please make it part of it. It's one crop in your whole orchard. It's one fruit tree. Don't have a monocrop. We see what happened with monocrops. Monocrops can get eliminated with poor weather conditions, right? It's the same thing. We want to be diversified. So I'm still a fan. I say you should have a percentage of your portfolio in crypto. You should have a percentage of your portfolio in stocks and bonds and real estate and right? So that, because different investments respond differently to different economic conditions. And so if you are diversified, you will balance out your portfolio and you will have standard and long-term growth.
Right. Cool. Thank you for that. And one thing I also wanted us to touch base on with you, in particular, you have a number of offerings. Like you have programs for women, you have programs for men, you have programs for couples and teens. I'm curious as to what is the difference between these programs that you find. Like, what sort of information do you find is specifically pertinent to women as opposed to men? I'm sure there's crossover to both and for couples as well, but what do you find is important specifically for a couple of these different groups?
So mostly it's language. Mostly it's language and delivery. The system, like money runs on a set of principles. Like, it doesn't matter if I'm teaching it to a man or a woman or a child. Like, there are the way to grow a garden is standard across the board. You need like step 1, you got to observe you look at your finances. Step 2, you got to look at your soil conditions and your belief system. Step 3, where you're going. Step 4, create the money management system. All of it's the same. A lot of it's got to do with just languaging and how I share it, and just the voice that I, the voice and the words that I use. Now, working with couples, that's definitely more nuanced. I need more work with couples because we're now trying to consolidate, again, because people come from such different backgrounds and have such different mindset around money, that merging that can be so challenging, right? And I got to be very careful that I'm not dealing with marriage problems instead of money problems, right? And so the way that I help navigate couples around finances is like the systems. Can we agree on a shared system? Like, can we agree to like use a system? Like, maybe you got your system and I got my system, but this is our system that we can both agree on, that creates transparency, and it can create and some sort of understanding between each other. But really, the essence of the coaching that I do is the essence of the work is all the same.
I love that so much. You know, this is when I first started to become aware that you were doing this offerings, is when I was spending time with a mutual friend of all of ours, that is a couple, and they went through your course, and we were out at an event where there was some vending, and I observed the way that they shopped together, and they made this big purchase together as a gift, and they were talking about their give barrel.
Mhm.
And I was like, what are you talking about? Give barrel. And they're like, oh, well, in this empowerment course that we're doing, we have, been putting money in a give barrel. So that way we know when we want to buy a special gift for someone, we have this special place to be spending it from, and we can see how much money is in there. And I just loved that so much. It was a really beautiful synergy between the two of them and their language and making that decision together. And so love to see if there's anything that you can share around this concept of the barrels that you teach.
Yeah, and it's definitely like, and this is something that I learned from my teacher T. Harv Eker about 15 years ago, and it maybe 18 years ago, and I've been using it ever since. I've adapted it, I've made it mine. But the idea is that, just like in a garden, we got different garden beds, right? You're going to grow fruits and veggies here, you're going to grow plants over there, and so right, most people have all their finances like in one account, a checking account, maybe they have a savings account, right? And everything comes out of that account. They pay the bills, they go out for dinner, they give charity, they buy the Christmas gifts, they go for a restaurant, everything comes out of a single account. And they pay the credit card, they write checks, and if both couples are doing, and what ends up happening is there's no transparency. You don't know what you spend. And with all my entrepreneurs that I work with, they throw all their business expenses into the same account. Everything's running through one single account. There's no transparency. And so what the system does is it creates a different bank account for different parts of your life. So like you shared, there's a give account. So money comes in, it goes into what we call the holding tank, right? Money goes into this like holding tank. And just like an irrigation system, on the first or the second of the month, we open that holding tank and money trickles out of there, and $100, $200, $500 goes into this give barrel. And then that money is dedicated for giving. And that can be charity, that can be birthday gifts, that can be helping a buddy out, pay it forward. In addition to the give barrel, we also have another one called the play barrel, right? And this works really well with my couples, because some people are spenders and some people are savers and some people are chronic investors. So if we have different bank accounts for each of these parts of ourselves, so we have a play barrel, we have a give barrel, we have a save barrel, we have an invest barrel, we have a health and wisdom barrel. So that the chiropractor, the massage, the hair, it has a specific account. And this eliminates the need for budgets, and it creates amazing transparency in our spending. Me and my wife have been using it and it's amazing. We don't fight about money. If we want to go out on a Saturday night, we look at our account and how much is in the bank account? Oh, there's $500. Let's go. Vegas, baby. If there's $50, hey, it's Netflix and pizza. And that's just the way we make our decisions, is there money in the account or there isn't. And at the end of the month, when it's all gone, it gets replenished at the beginning of the next month. That's a fantastic way of managing and tracking money.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So beautiful. Thank you for putting that out there. And I love this concept of like, being able to use a system that can provide a sense of freedom, right? Especially within partnership, to see, that so many of the problems that married people have or couples have comes down to money, but to break it down into a way to observe rather than fight about things, just like look at how things are rather than having to get into a whole process around it.
Yeah. And again, it's back to Janus's question. When we create the system, the amounts don't matter, right? Like everybody's at different revenues and everybody's got different expenses. But what we want to make sure is that each of those garden beds, each of those accounts are getting nurtured, are getting watered like just as important as putting $100 into the invest barrel could be just as important as putting $100 into that play barrel, right? Because sometimes people have all this money and they just don't enjoy it. or they go out for that $50 steak. Have you ever gone out and you ordered that steak and you're like eating it and you're like, oh, fuck, that steak cost $50 and every, you know, that was a $7 bite. You know what I mean? And you can't like fully enjoy, or you don't order the wine, or you know, it's like we're part of this is to break ourselves out of this and to be able to play and to be able to give. Like, so many people have a hard time giving. They don't think they have enough to give, and therefore and like giving is in divine communion with God. Like our need to give is so important. And when people have this barrel, all of a sudden they feel abundant enough to share and to give, and it opens hearts and it changes lives for real.
That's awesome. So can I ask a question just about understanding what systems mean? So it sounds like systems means, a framework put in place so that you kind of in advance decide how you're going to distribute your funds, so that in moment by moment, you're not making a decision, constantly making decisions over and over again, but you're just kind of following a decision that you kind of made at a point of strength and your highest balance, and maybe with guidance of an advisor, and then that you follow that system. Is that what that means?
That's exactly right. What we do is we just like, again, I'll keep coming back to the metaphor because the metaphor makes sense, right? We look at our garden, we look at our garden beds, we lay down the irrigation pipes, we set the timers, and then we sit back and we allow the system to do the work. The money flows automatically. And our job is to set it and maintain it, not set it and forget it, because just like a garden, you can't just set it and forget it. You got to set it and maintain it, but you're not worrying about it every moment of every day. You know, like the one thing we don't want to do is if you got a system that requires your attention all the time. If I got to go out and I got to water that lawn every day, yeah, I might do it for a week, I might do it for 2 weeks, but get what? Life's going to get in the way. So what we want is a system, like an automated money management system. That money comes in, it gets distributed, it goes to our different barrels. I know I'm investing every month. That's also automated. So $100 comes into my, what we call our financial freedom barrel. I take that $100, I put $50 into stocks. I put $20 into bonds. We automate the whole thing, so that really you can get on with the life and do what you want to do. And money just becomes a subset of that. And there's a system to manage and maintain. And so you definitely, my whole goal with my clients is to, like, that's what I do, is I get you the system set up so that you can get on with your life. And then money now is just becomes something that you maintain and you manage and you move forward.
Do you think that this is applicable to many different types of people, whether that is somebody who's on a salary versus, somebody who's on welfare or an entrepreneur, or, what you're speaking to is a really amazing system, but I'm just curious as, who is this applicable to?
I haven't found, I mean, again, I think it's not, it's not applicable to children. Okay. Again, I teach an abridged version to kids. Like, my kids get a salary, my kids get an allowance, right? And it's predicated on some things, and they have a jar system. So when they've got to save, they've got to play, and they've got to give. So those are their three jars that they have. So they are implementing a management system. There is nobody that I've met that could not use the system. I'm unequivocally committed to this. I've seen it. I've dealt with clients with multi-million-dollar net worths. I've dealt with clients with negative net worths. The system just works. It just doesn't matter what phase or place you're in, it works. Now, there's another piece to this, which is my entrepreneurs, my small business owners, and understanding how to navigate your personal expenses versus your business expenses, because the biggest mistake that I see is this intermingling. And what I'd like to teach is the separation. Like, you want to treat business and personal like church and state. They're different. They have different balance sheets. They have different profit and losses. They have different rules that govern them. And the only connection between the business and the personal is when your business pays you money into your personal account. Other than that, they run their own business. They have their own bank accounts, their own credit cards. So that's very important. Janus, when you start this business, it should have its own entity. It should have its own identity. It should have its own bank account. It should have its own debit or credit card, and neither the twain shall meet. You should not be buying your chiropractor care with your business card unless it's a business expense.
Right. Well, that's the thing as far as how I understand, all these write-offs. Like I have a friend who owns a car dealership, and had talked to me about, and I was talking to him about shopping for cars, and he's like, well, as somebody with your own business, you can write that whole thing off.
Definitely.
So that would be a business expense. Speaking of which, a question that I got, not about you, but somebody like you, your services. Like somebody asked me, like, well, how important is it to, let's say I've got a lot of debt, for example. How does that fit into like a system you've got? Is that something that I should be working to, like, should I clear out a certain amount of debt before like I have a conversation with somebody like you, or can that be incorporated into the plan?
So there's a couple of, so in the finance coaching world, there are different approaches to debt. Like a Dave Ramsey, I'm sure you all know Dave. Dave's got a very hard line on credit card. He's like, you do nothing but take care of your credit card debt. You do nothing until you smash that credit card down, and he's got a very clear and definitive system. I do not have that same approach. I believe that we should be investing from day one. So I would just for multiple reasons, but there's a huge psychological reason to feel like, in addition to taking care of my debt, I'm also investing. So I like we build it into the system. If you've got big debt is the biggest, the great leak. It's the big irrigation. That's the hole in the irrigation, right? And it's just sprouting resources out. It doesn't go to your garden. It goes to the bank's garden, right? And so we want to take care of that leak. And so in order to do that, the way we do that is we put more money towards the credit card, getting it down, and we trickle a little bit. Remember I said it's not the amount that matters, it's the habit. Put $50 instead of $500 into the play account. We put $50. I don't care. You're paying back past expenses. You're going to play less, my man, until that credit card's taken care of. But I want to make sure you're playing just a little, because no play makes Janus a grumpy boy, right? And no investing. So we want to make sure that we're dripping at least a little bit of money while taking care of that debt. Once that debt's taken care of, we turn the faucet up, more money into each of the barrels, each of the gardens, and you can start to grow it that way. So great question.
Good to hear.
So what is the first thing someone does listening to this that realizes that they need to take some steps?
Mm-hmm. Great question.
You got to get clarity. The first step is to really get clarity on your finances. You got to start paying attention. What do you own? What do you owe? Right. So again, in every business, and most business owners understand this. Every business owner understands that you've got to have a proper set of financials. You've got to have a balance sheet, and you've got to have a profit and loss. And we get that every month from the company, right? So too, we want to create a personal balance sheet. All my assets minus all my liabilities, everything I own minus everything I owe. We got to get like our point A, right? And that gives us our net worth. What's our current net worth? Where are we today? That net worth might be small, might be huge, might be negative, right? I might have more debt than I have assets. We got to look at that with observation, not in judgment. We got to be like, all right, shit, this is where I'm at. Like, or I've had so many clients that are so pleasantly surprised when they do this exercise. They're like, oh my God, I had no idea I was worth $600,000. Or, oh my goodness, like, wow, when I found a 401k, I didn't even know. The other beauty of that, of doing this consolidated balance sheet, is you land up bringing all your expenses into a single document, right? And this document helps you to just bring everything down into a single page. And God forbid something happens to you, God forbid something happens to your significant other, it's a roadmap to your money. Like, how many horror stories have we heard of people dying with millions and millions? I mean, Aretha Franklin just died with $85 million of net worth, with no will, no trust, and people are like, clamoring over her will now, right?
Mm.
And so this balance sheet is really your first. And I would love to offer that as a gift to listeners, and we can put it as a link. And I would love to gift that to anybody who wants it. It really gives you a snapshot, and also how you diversify it. So if all my money is in property, or all my, or if I've got only stocks and bonds, but I've got no other assets. So it's broken down into different asset categories. So that's really the first thing. Yes, Bet.
Yeah, I would also love to add on to anyone out there that kind of is where I was around believing that I am smart enough to go into learning about finance, because where some of my core beliefs came from was I'm not smart enough to manage money, so therefore I'm just not going to make a lot of money. It's just much easier to have less money so I don't have to like deal with all of it. And so I would say from my personal experience, some of the first steps really are learning some of the language, right? Maybe someone out there listening is like, well, what is net worth? What is asset? What is balance sheet? What do all of these terms actually mean? So that was one of my first steps, is to start to study and start to learn the language of money, learn the language of finance. So that way, as I started to progress and start working with someone like you and take some of these classes, I could actually comprehend it. And then the just affirming that I'm smart enough to be able to handle and manage money. I'm able to manage large amounts of money, right? And so I think that that's an important part of this process too, of knowing that we have the education.
Yeah. And yeah. And I use those words and very clearly, I mean, again, in the course, we define all of those things, but yeah, I take it for granted, right? And so what is an asset? What is a liability? How do I categorize it? Right. I think, many people are focused on what they earn rather than what they own. And so there's a little bit of a distinction there, right? Because what I earn is not a reflection of what I'm worth. So there's they live on different financial statements. They're a different part of the scorecard. And part of what we teach is how do you take from what you earn and put it into something that you own, right? Because if we, so many people, they go from $5,000 a month to $15,000 a month, and all that happens is what we call is lifestyle creep, right? So it's their earning goes up, but so does their spending correspondingly, and they still have nothing left. They still have nothing on their balance sheet. They haven't bought any assets. They haven't bought anything that is appreciating in value. They buy liabilities, they buy toys, and they buy things that depreciate that they think are assets, and they buy And when you understand the power of compounding interest, like I shared earlier, I use this example of a wave runner, right? If you took that 25 grand and you went and you could have invested it versus bought a wave runner, that 25 grand compounds into like $500,000 in 30 years at a particular interest rate. Whereas that wave runner is worth absolutely zero in 30 years. And so that's the distinction. That's just the power of like understanding how money works. It's just the power of education and just like really learning the framework of like, wow, there's an opportunity cost to everything I'm spending.
Yes, and something that you sparked recently in some of our calls is using money in a way that you can still spend, but do it in a really wise way. I got to see your wife recently, and she showed me the diamond bracelet that you gave her for her birthday. And I was like, amazing. This is this beautiful diamond bracelet, and it was an investment. And it's like you get to give each other these gifts that are actually very well thought out investments as a couple, not just like some fun thing to spend money on.
And honestly, it's because, I mean, again, it was her 50th birthday and I wanted to buy something beautiful, but also because that part of my balance sheet was actually a little low and less as a percentage of my overall portfolio was much less than I wanted. And so I feel like gold and jewelry and diamonds and like it's a value, you're buying assets, and you get practical use out of it. So you get a double win. You get to please the missus as well as build the balance sheet.
I love that. I love these little details of ways that we think about money, that there's like it seems like a little difference like between buying a jet ski and buying diamonds, but there's a huge difference in the way that it affects, you as an investor. I have another question in that vein. I had a friend who was looking into investing in property, and they were looking into getting a tiny house instead of, a condo. But my understanding was they were not going to be owning the property it was on. So they would be owning a structure that I believe would be depreciating as it gets older. Whereas in real estate, it's the land itself that is going to be appreciating. So that's like, could be it seems like the exact same investment. One is good, one is bad. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So again, real estate's such a complicated game. And again, it all depends on is he buying that as an invest, like I living on the village, and we invest in tiny homes. Okay. Well, why? Because I invest in them because because the return, so if I'm buying a tiny home and I'm able to rent it out, well, then that's a different, now I'm buying an income producing asset, right? So like, let's say for easy numbers, just as an example, the tiny home costs $100,000 and I get to make $1,000 a month on that tiny home as a rental. It means I make $12,000 total on the $100,000 investment. It means I've made a 12% rate of return on that investment, right? Now, I don't want to get too complicated with the numbers, right? If that thing cost me 50 grand and I'm making the same $1,000, it means I'm making a 24% rate of return on my investment. That's worth buying, right? And if he's buying it for himself, for his own home, that's a very different thing than if he's buying it for a rental property that he can rent out and make a return on his investment. So I don't want to get too nuanced. I don't want to get too into the numbers, but yes, owning land, ideally owning land. But again, like, there's another big schism. I don't know if that's a word, like a big separation in the coaching world, the financial. If owning your own house is even considered an asset. I don't know if you've heard of, Robert Kiyosaki says you should not buy your own house. He's like, buying your own house is a poor investment. Why? Because buying your own house takes money out of your pocket every month. Robert Kiyosaki defines an asset as anything that brings money into your pocket, and a liability that is anything that takes money out of your pocket. That's how he defines an asset and a liability. So in that regard, a tiny home that you rent and you get money is actually an asset. But your own personal home that you pay the bank for 30 years is actually a liability. Now, yeah, will it appreciate? Maybe. It depends on where you buy it and what point in the market. People are buying now at high rates with high interest rates. Makes me nervous, right? Because you could buy $1 million house today, which is nothing in SoCal, and then next thing you know, the market drops, and you, like we saw in 2000. So real estate's a very tricky business, and you got to pay attention. What a lot of people don't understand as well is there's ways to get into real estate that you don't have to spend $100,000. I can get you into real estate for $500, and with these real estate investment trusts, which are companies that have thousands, tens of thousands of units, and you can buy a micro fraction of them and be invested in that whole pool, similar to like an index fund in the stock market, right? Where you buy something like the S&P 500, you can spend $1,000 on the S&P and you own a piece of 500 companies. That same model exists in real estate. So there's other ways of being in real estate without having to have huge amounts of capital and lots of money.
Super helpful. Thanks.
This is a deep conversation. Obviously, there is many, many layers to this conversation around money, wealth, finance, so many different explorations, and we probably could just keep going and going, but want to just honor everyone's time and really love to close it up with sparks. That's our tradition here on this podcast is what is our closing sparks? What are something that really like lit us up in this conversation? So anyone want to share a closing spark?
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
My big spark from this is a combination of what you said, Betsy, about believing that you are smart enough, and I certainly resonate with the idea of kind of just throwing my hands up and saying, I don't know, and in doing so, kind of resolving, I'd rather have more limited resources than figure out or spend time learning more about this. And so that a big part of this is believing it's possible. And then recognizing that there are resources, like we just heard, Craig talk about what his offering and the books that we're talking about, and that there's, and I guess thinking of it as a continued education that we have to go through. And it's not a matter of, oh, I get finances, I don't get finances. It's, I've started this journey of growth and learning, or I haven't. And as we keep hitting home, start it 20 years ago. And if not, start it today.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, that's the similar to my closing spark. I feel like I'm coming out of this feeling a little bit more empowered than I was coming into it, feeling like, oh, okay, like hearing like this is doable. This is a manageable thing. It doesn't seem so far beyond me, or so far I don't seem so far away from being able to like start this journey or begin this journey. So yeah, so that's got me feeling pretty sparked. So yeah, so thanks for that today, Craig.
I'll share my closing spark. So as somebody who's gotten to work with you directly, excuse me, I feel like the biggest piece here is the interweaving of the belief systems and the more logistical step-by-step process to be able to live in the prosperity reality, right? You mentioned playing the game, right? Understanding it from a grounded structural perspective while also being aware of the more ethereal kind of belief systems, epigenetics, and that sort of thing. So I feel like that has been such an inspiration to me in my own journey of evolution in the money realm, being able to find the balance of doing my deeper inner work and then receiving the support from somebody who is very well educated. So I'm just lit up from this conversation, and I'm so excited to keep working with you. And I'm so excited that some of our listeners that may not have heard of you are getting to learn more about you. So,
Yeah, thanks.
you got a closing spark for us, Sea Love?
Yeah, just changing your relationship with money changes so many things. Okay, like it's worth the work. It's worth doing. Like if not from, please, like I'm just I'm one guy. Like if not from me, there's so many people, there's so many resources, there's so many books. Get educated, figure it out. Like changing your money can change your history, can change your family's history, can change like if we are to change the planet, we need more heart-centered humans holding and stewarding more money. Like it's just imperative. And so that's my prayer and my wish and my dream is that, we get more people with more beautiful, the people that are listening and tuning into this, that they find the spark to go and do the work and ultimately, create more beautiful gardens with more magical flowers and lots of healthy soil, because that's what we're here for.
And juicy fruit,
Juicy fruit, come on.
abundant juicy fruit for all. Yes, from the overflowing. Yes.
Totally.
Love that so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So many sparks just going off. I'm so grateful, and love to give people an opportunity to find more of your work in the world. So maybe you can share some guidance on how they can find you and work with you.
Yeah, the best way is to go to craigsaloner.com, and there you can actually just, if you want, you can book a call with me. I'm starting my first webinar. My new live webinar is coming out on September 20th. And I'm launching a new mini course, which will be a really sweet little intro. So it's not the full Monty, and you don't have to do it. It's really going to be a 3-day, really just like a sweet little balance sheet, revenue, expenses, some belief work, helping you set up your investments. Just a little. So that's all coming down the line. But in the meantime, you can get hold of me at craigsaloner, SALONER.com, and I would love to connect and reach out and say hi. And yeah, thank you. That'd be great.
Amazing. Yep. And the course also, right? I'm taking your course currently, and it's multi-modules. It has been very comprehensive. There's amazing worksheets and just so much guidance in there. I've learned so much. I'm only, I think, on module 4, going into module 5, and I have already made some big changes in my belief system and also in my habits. So really recommending that as well to those of you out there. And then also for people to find you guys out in the world, HALCYON, JANUS, little
Sure.
guidance and how to spark with you.
Well, you don't have to Google too long to find me, but you can find most of my stuff at johnstin.com, JOHNSTYN, and that has got my t-shirt store, my YouTube channel, my other podcast, which is Hard on the 80s, and a free sticker offer if you want to send me a note. So yeah, find me at johnstin.com.
I'm just going to also highlight your gratitude circles as well as a beautiful offering to infuse your life with more gratitude. HALCYON is guiding some wonderful gratitude circles.
Thank you, Betsy.
All right. And I can be found online at nuworldnutritionals.com. That's spelled NU worldnutritionals.com. It's the name of my nutritional supplement company. And our main product is a microdose product that is designed and helps with help alleviate a lot of symptoms of things like ADHD, PTSD, symptoms of anxiety, depression, dementia, Parkinson's, things like that. And also just for standard, desires to focus, helps with learning, memory, retention, and just overall, my partner refers to it as a spa day for her brain. It just helps her to relax and improve her outlook and perspective. So you can find us online at nuworldnutritionals.com. You can use the code SPARKED for 10% off of all of our products.
Awesome.
Amazing.
How about you, Betsy?
Yay. Yes, find me, connect, let's connect. So my website, poweraffirmation.com, you can find a lot of my offerings there. Also finklehoo.com, that's my last name. Recently, I have come to a new title, which feels really good. I'm going to try it on. I am a transformational integration guide, because I really value supporting people with their inner transformation, whether that is of the mind, mindset, using the affirmation tools that I have out, whether that is in the body through body work, healing work, energy work, or just lifestyle in general. Transforming is a really big part of how I am here to serve. And then integration is a key component, the daily steps that we take to be able to implement new ways of living. So yes, find me online. And then of course there is a prosperity affirmation that is on Insight Timer, and this theme of money. So check that out. It is in the show notes. Welcome to just use that to charge up your mindset.
Well, speaking of affirmations, would you close us out with an affirmation, Betsy?
I would be honored to. Yes, let's close it up with a spark of an inspirational affirmation. So if you like, you can close your eyes. If you want to, you can put your arms up in the air. This is a power pose. We talked about Tony Robbins. He talks about power poses. So arms up in the air like we are a chalice, an open vessel. Affirmation is, I am open to receive infinite amounts of abundance, prosperity, and wealth into my life. I am worthy to receive wealth and abundance, bringing our hands to our hearts. I am brilliant and smart about money. I know how to manage large amounts of money, and I do it efficiently in a way that is in integrity with life. And so it is. Thank you so much, Craig, for joining us today, being our first guest on Stay Sparked. So for those of you out there that have an interest in wanting to guest, you can always send us a message. We are exploring this new platform. So thank you all so much for listening, and stay sparked.
Thank you.
Stay sparked, people.